It's time once again to check in with good old Benny Sharp, everybody's favorite shady mech maker. In a previous episode of his turning Godzilla monsters into giant mech armors, I alluded to the fact that he'd built a Nightcrawler mech before, and figured once something decently big came up for the X-Men in pop culture, I'd do an X-Men Mech Armors episode. And recently we got an announcement of a Wolverine game coming to PlayStation 5. It was a really short and teasery trailer, but hey, figured it was a good enough excuse to finally do this episode. So, let's change some X-Men into mech suits, shall we? Let's go. Hit like, if you want. Subscribe, if you feel like. But either way, enjoy the show. Old Benny Sharp has had one heck of a week, folks. I mean, first I got stuck in some wacky arena battle in another dimension, with a few of my buddies, who I hope they got out of there okay. Anyway, then when I was out, I got zapped back to my home dimension, where I ain't exactly welcome at the moment. Agent Apple Squash, Red Egress, and a bunch of goons from the Superhero Corrections and Placement Foundation wanted me like a swarm of spiders on a wet glass jar. Which is to say they was everywhere, but they couldn't quite get a grip on me, you know? Old Benny slipped out of sight real good and popped back to my old stomping grounds. My beautiful mech-making garage had sadly been raided, of course. But luckily, I ain't left none of the good stuff out in the open. I'm a lot sharper than to do something stupid like that. I got a secret basement under it where I keep all my best suits and equipment. I've camped out down here for a while and got to work building a mech for myself that could jump me back to my buddy Heath's dimension. See, even though I only recently started jumping around to other dimensions all the time going on wacky adventures with my new super friends, I actually sort of figured out how to dimension jump a few years ago when I was working on some suits that could teleport. Look at this. You got me reminiscing. Alright, I got time for a few stories, then I'm vamoosing back to Heath's world. See, out in butt-slap nowhere, New York, there's this bald gazillionaire dude in a fancy wheelchair who runs some kind of weird orphanage called, like, I don't know, Xander's School for Shifty Goons or something. Anyway, he starts coming to me to build mech suits for some of the kids he's got running around. He wanted to train them to fight supervillains or something, but I really didn't care to reason. I was just happy to have a billionaire bringing me some of his business, you know? Anyway, the first kid he brings me is this German kid, Kurt is something. This kid's a gymnast and can already do all kinds of crazy flips and stuff, but he wants me to build him a suit that can let him teleport and climb up walls real easy. He also wanted it to have a devil tail, and that kind of sketched me out a little bit, you know? I wasn't sure if this kid was like some kind of Satanist or something, but I guess I can't really judge now because I've got a friend who has an actual devil tail, so what are you gonna do? Anyway, I'd never had to make a teleporting suit before, but of course I said I could do it and that I'd figure it out. Except I didn't really figure it out. To be honest, I was getting nowhere. I got the core of the suit built and it was looking real sleek and sharp, but could teleport about as well as an obese cat. Which is to say, it couldn't at all. So that was when I took a little trip to the garage of an old competitor of mine who disappeared a few years back. Pretty sure a client killed her or something, but I don't really know. Rest in peace, whatever her name was. Anyway, I'd heard tell that she'd made some kind of teleporting tech, and seeing as how she wasn't around to use it anymore, I may or may not have busted into a vault and grabbed some stuff for myself. Not exactly my proudest moment, but hey, I got customer loyalty, and the customer wanted a teleporting suit. I did what I had to. I don't know how my old competitor figured it out, but this tech was simple and real easy to work with. I built it into the suit and tested it out, and it worked like magic. Made a big purple puff of smoke when it jumped around, and I thought the kid might have a problem with that, but it turns out he thought it was a lot cooler for doing that. He thought I'd done it on purpose. Definitely hadn't, but hey, I pretended I did. Made me seem that much more impressive. It also made this real great bamfing sound when it jumped, and it was unusually satisfying to hear. I can't really do it justice with my gob, but trust me, it's real good stuff. Anyway, I saw the kid on the news a while back, bamfing around, and it turns out he started using swords along with the suit. And I'm like, buddy, if you wanted to use swords, I could have put swords in the suit. But hey, what are you gonna do? I got paid and the kid was happy with it. Plus, Baldy Pennybags came back to me for a whole bunch of suits, and he referred a bunch of other people to me, including someone that got me looking more into the teleporting tech I was working with, which showed me some pretty interesting stuff. Turns out this tech didn't just jump you to another place on my world, but we'll get more into that in a sec. Now, a while after I started building suits for the bald guy, this gal came to me looking for the wildest suit I ever done build. This Russian kid wanted every single thing I could possibly put in the suit. She wanted it to teleport, to have a giant retractable sword, to shoot energy blasts out of everywhere, to make plasma shields, to have those crazy bendy back werewolf leg sort of things, what are they called, Digimon legs or something, I don't know. Anyway, This is the kind of client I really like, you know? One with a little bit of imagination, which I didn't expect from her, cause she's actually the sister of this really boring kid from Baldy McGee's place who I built a suit for a while back. This big, muscly Russian dude wanted a suit that was basically just a big metal armor. Made him a lot stronger and more durable, but besides that it didn't really do nothing. And he wanted it to be mostly all silver too. Was the most boring suit I ever done built. I mean, I made it look cool of course, but he gave me nothing to work with from a power perspective. Just a colossal waste of metal if you ask me, but whatever. Not his sister though. She wanted the works and more. And of course, the teleporting thing brought me back to the tech that I borrowed. Well, who are we kidding? I stole it. But anyway, I took it apart, rebuilt it, figured out how it worked before I put it in the German kid's suit so I could make more. And when I got real down into it, I figured out that this thing wasn't just jumping someone's atoms around or something. It was actually jumping someone into another dimension and bringing them back to my dimension in a different place. The dimension it was defaulting to was this freaky, spiky, monstrous looking place, and to be honest, I wouldn't want to send my worst enemy there. But this crazy kid thought it was the greatest thing since, I don't know, My Chemical Romance? This kid looked like she'd like My Chemical Romance, you know? Got that kind of vibe going. Anyway, the crazy kid even asked me if I could make it so she could stay in that spooky place longer, instead of just jumping back here right away. I thought she was crazy, but hey, the client gets what the client wants, you know? Took me a bit of work, but it wasn't too hard. On top of that, I just went all out with the look of this suit, and maybe a little bit too all out, you know? You look at this thing and you go, whoa, there's a lot of stuff going on here. It's got clockwork elbows and floating blades, spikes popping out of its head and back and arms. It's a lot, I'll be honest. Sometimes less can be more aesthetically, kids. Simplicity can be better than making something that looks like a trash compactor threw up. Of course, I am underselling it a little bit. It's its own sort of look, you know? And the kid loved it, so at the end of the day, I did my job. I ain't seen her popping up in the news or nothing. I think she ended up joining her brother at the school for shifty kiddos or whatever for a little bit, and then left or something. I don't know what she's up to. Last I saw her, though, she was actually running around with a little pet dragon on her shoulder. She doesn't care about weirding out nobody. In fact, I think she might get a kicks from spooking folks. She must have stole that dragon from that dimension she jumps to or something. I mean, my world's got some pretty freaky people like Regenazad and Vigashai running around, but I ain't seen any dragons popping up here. At least not that I can remember at the moment. I'm willing to bet that she took that thing and there's gonna be some consequences for it someday, but hey, she's got one of the wildest mech suits I ever done built, and an attitude that makes Muhammad Ali seem like Piglet. So I'm sure she can handle whatever's coming her way. Anyway, now I'm just trying to figure out how to use that same tech to jump around to a whole bunch of different dimensions, not just that real spooky one. If I can figure this out, it'll be real good news for me and all my buddies, cause right now we're relying on Kayla, Astra, and Tayrin to jump us around to whatever place we need to go to. If I can make tech that can let us jump around to whatever dimension we want, whenever we want, then we're all gonna have a much easier time looking for trouble out in the multiverse, which is basically our full-time jobs now. But you know what, thinking about the suits I made for Smooth Scalp Wheelie Boy's friends reminds me of another one. One that I didn't even know was gonna end up being someone who'd work with him someday. I'll tell you about that one before I get back to my own business, huh? Now, this is the part of the video I'm supposed to tell you about how you can find all the Mech Armors in this episode as posters on the Teespring store and a whole bunch of other posters I made before. But something's come to my attention lately, and that's a lot of people talking about how there's a new favorite narrator on PopCross Studios, that guy with a fancy drink for a name, Champagne McGregor. Now, I don't know what some of you goons might like better about him than me, but you let him know that old Benny Shop is still planning on turning this place into Benny Shop Studios someday, and I'm gonna fight for my territory if I have to. You all, let him know for me, I'm not letting him move in on my spot. I'll always be the best narrator around here, alright? Tell him that for me. Who said? What? Look, I don't know what or who you're talking about. I don't know what PopCross Studios is. I'm not a narrator, I'm just a person. A person who would like to get their bleeding work done before the weekend for once. So if you could leave me alone and get back to whatever stupid thing you were talking about before, that would be great with me. Goodbye, thanks. Okay, see, this next suit I actually done built before I ever met Cue-Ball Rollabout. Seemed like the same sort of setup though. This guy Striker came to me for a few different suits, but was a lot more private about what he was using them for. Of course, I got a little curious and found out that he was making a team of assassins or whatnot. And at the time, I didn't really care that much. You know, I ain't always been the pillar of morality that I am today. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with, and nowadays I run around with a whole bunch of different dimension-hopping superheroes, so I'm more inclined to do the right thing. But back then, a paying client was a paying client, you know? But I did draw the line eventually. See, he got me to build one of the toughest suits I ever done built, even though it's not exactly the tallest one I ever made. He gave me the measurements for it, and it was for a guy that made Tom Cruise look tall and made Dwayne Johnson look skinny. We're talking little and beefy. Stryker said the guy was a blade master and wanted the thing to have giant claws between its knuckles. He also wanted the suit to be able to fix itself. That kinda just made me laugh at first, but apparently he was being serious. That was the first time I ended up having to work with nanobots. You know, those little tiny robots that can form together to make stuff. And look, they're pretty good for having a suit be able to shift around and make different stuff. They are real versatile, but I'll be honest, they feel a little bit like cheating to me. Call me old-fashioned, but I like having a mech suit that's chunky and you can see the metal shifting and clanking together and moving around. There's a kind of beauty in the hard way, you know? But the client asked, so I delivered. Put a layer of nanobots on the outside lining so the thing could self-repair. Those bots ain't cheap, but this guy was willing to pay big money for the suit. Was something like 5 times more expensive than any suit I made for him before, so it got me curious about what he was doing with this one specifically. When I looked into it more, turned out an old employee of his had left his weird assassin business and Stryker had kidnapped the poor guy, wiped his memory, and was trying to hypnotize him into being a killer for him. That seemed like a bit much to me even back then, so I may or may not have sabotaged their facility before they finished the brainwashing. Then the short guy busted out of there with the suit and, well, he kinda started killing everyone in sight. I just bolted out of there after that, felt like I'd done my job. But a few years later, I heard from some of the kids at the orphanage place that the little ball of blades had been brought there as a teacher. And I just want to take a moment to say that if you're judging me for any of the stuff I'd done in my past, take a moment to think about the fact that our hairless billionaire friend hired a murderer to train a bunch of kids on how to use their mech suits. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's good at what he does, maybe even the best, but still not the kind of guy I'd want teaching my kids. I mean, not that I have kids, I just got an adorable little dog that my cousin Billy's been taking care of while I've been off dimension hopping. Speaking of which, I think I'm gonna bring little Muffles with me on my next outing, since I probably won't be spending a whole bunch of time here in my home dimension over the next little while. At least not until I can figure out how to get the Superhero Corrections and Placement Foundation off of my back. Anyway, that Stryker guy managed to survive that breakout and came back to me for more armors, cause he had no idea that I was the one that helped set free his little project. He asked me to make a suit even tougher than the last one. He wanted it to heal and have long blades in the arms and shoot laser eyes and teleport, and he wanted it to have a soundproof helmet with no way for the person inside to talk to people outside. He joked about how he was making it for a merc with a real big mouth on him, and Stryker didn't want the guy gabbing all the time on the job. Now I really drew the line there with this guy. Seemed like he was making me make another suit for someone that he was gonna turn into a mindless killer or something against their will, and it all just seemed a little bit too sketchy even for me. And if a guy's got a big mouth on him, let him use it, you know, he's probably got something funny to say. So I told Stryker that I'd get started right away, then put in a little call to Baldy's House for Wacky Children to let the short angry guy know that his old friend was running around. Never really heard him respond on the phone, just heard some growling, but since then, as far as I know, nobody's heard from Stryker since. Can't say I really feel that bad about that one, but maybe I keep that story from some of my new friends. Don't know if they'd really approve. But if it comes up, it comes up. I ain't worried about them finding out about my shifty past. Cause you know what they say, worrying today doesn't make tomorrow any better. It just makes today stink like a moldy egg in a steam sauna. Anyway, I gotta figure out how to go dimension jumping, so I'll see y'all later. I feel like I might have tied in a little bit too much Multiverse Tales stuff into this episode. Could end up alienating some people that have never watched the Multiverse Tales stuff, but it is certainly fun for me to, you know, wrap all these episodes a little bit more tightly together and have them referencing each other and stuff. If you're new here and don't know what I'm talking about, you can watch the original character episodes, the Multiverse Tales playlist. Benny Sharp's had a few episodes in there teaming up with other people. But anyway, is there other stuff you want me to do with X-Men characters or other stuff you want me to turn into Mech Armors? As always, let me know in the comments. And if you're new here and you want more out of Benny Sharp and Mech Armor design episodes, I've got a whole playlist of those, and I've done a bunch of other stuff with X-Men characters. Most specifically, I'd recommend the X-Titans episode, which was fusions of X-Men characters and Teen Titans characters. It's a fun story, and it's in one of my best series on this channel, which is Weird Marvel and DC Fusions. But anyway, besides that, that's all for today. I'm Christian Pearson, this has been PopCross Studios, home of the nerdiest art videos on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you all in the next episode on... You know, as I'm doing this, I've realized recently that I do the exact same set of hand gestures as I say everything in the outro. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm doing it differently, but I've also kind of botched this ending, so wherever I was, thanks for watching and goodbye.